ଚାଲ ପିଲାମାନେ ନବମ ଶ୍ରେଣୀର ପ୍ରଥମ ଅଧ୍ୟାୟ ଦ ପ୍ରାଇସଲେସ୍ ଗିଫ୍ଟ ପାଠଟିର ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ଉତ୍ତର କରିବା। 1 ନମ୍ବର, ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ ଡିଡ୍ ଦ ରାଇଟର ଏକ୍ସପେରିଏନ୍ସ ଇନ୍ ଦ ରେଷ୍ଟୁରାଣ୍ଟ? ଆନ୍ସର ହେଲା ଦ ରାଇଟର felt that the restaurant was very crowded and lots of people were eating and drinking there. He found some of the chairs and tables had been pushed into a corner. 2 number, what did he notice there? Answer ହେଲା he noticed there a very young girl giving him a sad look. 3 number, what was the writer's first impression of the girl? Answer ହେଲା the writer had the first impression that the girl was rather unhappy. 4 number, what made the writer surprised? Answer ହେଲା the girl asking the cashier in a low voice whether he was an Indian and her looking at him once more while going out made the writer surprised. তারপরে 5 নম্বর, why did the inquiry from the waiter? Answer ହେଲା the girl's interest in him aroused his curiosity in her, for which he inquired from the waiter. 6 number, what information did he get from the waiter? Answer ହେଲା the information which he got from the waiter was that the girl had her lunch in that restaurant on Saturdays only, that is on payday. He was also told that she did not earn much. 7 number, where did the writer go on the next Saturday? Answer ହେଲା on the next Saturday the writer went to the very same restaurant where he had met the poor girl. 8 number, why did the take the chair opposite hers? Answer ହେଲା he took the chairs opposite hers because he wanted to introduce himself to her and start a conversation. 9 number, what query did the girl make about the writer? Answer ହେଲା the query that the girl made about the writer was whether he was an Indian. 10 number, what impression did the writer have of the family of the girl? Answer ହେଲା as to the family of the girl, the writer came to know that her brother, who was working in India, was a soldier and he was her only guardian. Her mother was greatly worried about him as she had not heard from him for a long time. 11 number, how was the writer treated at Maggie's house? Who was there to welcome him? Answer ହେଲା the writer was treated cordially and eagerly. There was Maggie's mother to welcome him. 12 number, what was Mr. Emares Bethy doing when the writer met her? Why was she unwilling to go for a handshake? Answer ହେଲା when the writer met Emares Bethy, she was making cakes in the kitchen. She was unwilling to go for a handshake as her hands were covered with flour. 13 number, why did the girl usually visit the restaurant on Saturdays? Answer ହେଲା the girl usually visited the restaurant on Saturdays because Saturday was the payday and on this day she could afford to spend some money on a meal at a restaurant. 14 number, what did MRS Bethy believe about the ring? Answer ହେଲା MRS Bethy believed that the ring was a miraculous thing in which one could see the past and the future. She also believed that if one concentrated on a distant person while gazing into it, one would be able to see him and what he was doing. 15 number, what made the author tell a lie about the ring? Answer ହେଲା Maggie's fervent request to the author to look into the crystal and tell MRS Bethy that Frankie was all right and alive made him tell a lie about the ring. 16 number, did the telling of a lie benefit MRS Bethy? Answer ହେଲା yes, it did since tears of happiness welled up in MRS Bethy's eyes and she soon recovered from her illness. 17 number, why did the writer feel guilty about himself? Answer ହେଲା the writer felt guilty about himself because he had told a lie to MRS Bethy about her son being well and alive even though Frankie had been killed in the fighting on the frontier. 18 number, what was Maggie's gift to the writer? Answer ହେଲା Maggie's gift to the writer was a shilling which she had earned with so much toil. 19 number, why was it a precious gift? Answer ହେଲା the shilling was a precious gift because the poor little girl had earned it with so much toil and it meant a huge sacrifice to her. Moreover, the joy of making such a gift was beyond all price. তারপরে 20 নম্বর, did Maggie love her brother dearly? Give reasons. Answer ହେଲା Maggie had earned the shilling which she gifted to the writer with so much toil. She had great joy in making the offer for the sake of her brother who was no more. She had great relief that with the shilling the writer would buy flowers and put them on her brother's grave. This bears ample testimony to Maggie's deep love for her brother. Let's understand the text better. 1 number, why did the writer choose the corner table in the restaurant? Answer ହେଲା the writer chose the corner table in the restaurant because the restaurant was very crowded and some of the tables had been pushed into a corner. He wanted to read a newspaper without his attention being distracted. 2 number, how did the writer start a conversation with the young girl? Answer hela, the writer started a conversation with the young girl by going up to her, taking the chair opposite hers, wishing her a good afternoon and making a brief remark. 3 number, how could the writer guess the girl to be poverty stricken? Answer hela, the writer came to know from the waiter that the girl came to that restaurant on Saturdays only, that is on the payday, which meant that she did not earn much. So also had a sad anxious figure. From this the writer could guess the girl to be poverty stricken. poverty stricken. তারপরে 4 নম্বর, which of the following do you think the author will talk about after meeting the girl? Answer ହେଲା A ଆଉ C ଦେଇ ଦେଇଛି ଏଠି ଉତ୍ତର। ତାପରେ 5 নম্বর, I was moved by what he said. What impression did the writer get about the girl? Answer ହେଲା, from what the waiter said about the girl, the writer got the impression that the girl was extremely poor and rather unhappy. 6 number, what impression old MRS Bethy have of India? Answer ହେଲା, MRS Bethy had a strange impression of India. She thought there were too many snakes and tigers in India and they often killed people. 7 number, will it be too much of a lie? Why did the girl say so? Answer hela, this is a rhetorical questions. Here the girl said that if the writer looked into the crystal and told mother that Frankie was all right and alive, then it would not be too much of a lie. At number, why did the writer feel ashamed to face MRS Bethy at the time of his return to India? Answer hela, at the time of his return to India, the writer felt ashamed to face MRS Bethy since her son Frankie had died by then and they were in mourning, even though he had predicted that he was alive and well. No number, why was the shilling Maggie presented to the writer an invaluable offering? Answer hela, shilling is a British coin worth 5 pence and is a very small amount of money, but the shilling which Maggie presented to the writer was an invaluable offering because she had earned it with so much toil. It was a matter of great sacrifice on Maggie's part and she forwent so much for the love of her brother, hence it was an invaluable offering. তারপরে here is an exercise for you. Fill in the gaps using the appropriate form in each sentence. There is an dash of anger on his face. Express ଦେଇଛି expression ହେବ, depart ହେଇଛି departure ହେବ, ତାପରେ opportune ଦେଇଛି ଏଠି ହେବ opportunity, ଏଠି curious ଦେଇଛି curiosity ହେବ, ତାପରେ ଏଇଠି converse ଦେଇଛି conversation ହେବ, ଆଉ ଏଇଠି ଲାଷ୍ଟ ବାଲାରେ ହେବ concentrate ଦେଇଛି ଏଠି concentration ହେବ। ତାପରେ look at the following dialogues carefully and write them in the correct sequence as they occur in the story. How can I ever thank you, she said. ଏଠି 10ଟା ଅଛି, ତଳେ 10ଟା ଉତ୍ତର ଅଛି ହେଲା, ଏଟା ଦେଖିକି ଲେଖି ନେବ। ତାପରେ study the following combination collection of words, one is adjective and the other is noun। ଏପଟେ adjective plus noun, ଏଟା କରିନେବ, ଖାତାରେ ଲେଖିବ, ତାପରେ ଶୂନ୍ୟସ୍ଥାନ ପୂରଣ କରିବ। ପିଲାମାନେ ଭିଡ଼ିଓଟି ପଢ଼ିବି ହେଲେ ବହୁତ ଲମ୍ବା ହେଇଯିବ, ତେଣୁ କରି ତୁମେ ମାନେ ଏଟା ଭିଡ଼ିଓକୁ ଅଟକାଇକି ତୁମେ ମାନେ ଲେଖିନେବ। ଏହି ପାଠଟିର ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ଉତ୍ତର ବହୁତ ଲମ୍ବା ଅଛି, ତେଣୁ କରି ମୁଁ ଦେଖାଇ ଦେଉଛି ପେଜକୁ, ତୁମେ ମାନେ ଲେଖିନେବ। ଏଟା ଗୋଟିଏ ଆନ୍ସର ସିଟ୍, ତାପରେ ଏହାର ଉତ୍ତର ଏଇଆଡ଼େ ଅଛି ଲାଷ୍ଟରେ। ଏତିକି ଶେଷ। ପିଲାମାନେ ଭିଡ଼ିଓଟି ଭଲ ଲାଗିଲେ ଲାଇକ୍ ଏବଂ ସବସ୍କ୍ରାଇବ୍ କରିଦେବ ଏବଂ ବେଲ୍ ଆଇକନ୍କୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ପ୍ରେସ୍ କରିଦେବ, ଯାହା ଫଳରେ ତୁମେ ମାନେ ଏମିତି ନୂଆ ନୂଆ ଭିଡ଼ିଓ ପାଇପାରୁଥିବ।